We're looking now at today's Daf Samach Gimel. Amar Ablosa, Kol Adam she'en lo isha eno Adam. He's not considered a complete person if he's not married. Shenemar Zachar Nekeva Bra'am, Vayvarech Osam, Vayikra Eshmam Adam. So the Torah says that man was called Adam after he's created male and female, which means that God brought male and female together in a marriage intimacy, and that was Adam. That was the creation of man. Amar Abulasa, furthermore, Kol Adam she'en lo karka, so that he could build a house on a piece of land to live there, to support his family. Eino nikra Adam, shenemar shamayim shamayim lashem, v'ha'aretz nasan livnei Adam. So it's only someone who has aretz that was given and granted by God. He is called Adam because he can create, as we said, a house, a home, a domicile, and bring up a family on that land. Of course, I think implicit in this Gemara is a sense of gratitude to Hashem, to realize that what Hashem granted us, whatever we have, is from Hashem, as a challenge, but also an opportunity to build. V'yamar Rav Elazar, furthermore, my dichsiv eselo ezer kenegno. On the one hand, it says ezer, she's your helpmate. On the other hand, kenegno, she's against you. How do you reconcile this? Zacha ozarto. If you merit it, you deserve it, she'll support you. She'll build you up. She'll compliment you, her, of course. Lo zacha, unfortunately, kenegdo, she's going to fight against you. Sometimes when she fights against you, as the Netziv points out, that's a very positive thing. It gives you a balance. She's not just fighting you in a milchama. It's not just adversaries, but it's to build up something even greater. Vika diamri, another version of Rav Elazar Rami, he has to stira. Ksiv kenegdo, v'karinabo in nigdo. And that means, kinigdo means she's the misnagedet, she's opposing him. And on the other hand, kinigdo would seem that she is an ozeresla. So the kri and the ksiv have like a contradiction, a head-on. So the answer is, zacha kinigdo lo zacha minagdasa. Ashkechei Rabbi Yossi Lelio Anov Amalei. Rabbi Yossi says to Elio, Ksiv, it says Eselo Eze. And therefore I ask the following question. Bameh Isho Zartoli Adam. The Torah emphasizes that she, woman, is helpful to man. How does she help him? It doesn't say in the pasuk how she's meant to help him. And it could be that he was asking because of the other part of the pasuk that says kenegdo. In any event, Amalei, Elio responds to Rabbi Yossi's query. Adam mevi chitin, he brings grains, wheat from the field. And chitim koses, is he going to chew up the chitim, make it into like bran flakes? Is that it? It can't be eaten as is. You have to do a lot of work, what we call ibud or avoda. There's a whole series of malachos, of labor that has to be implemented in order to arrive at a loaf of bread. So this is what a woman can do and a man cannot do. He brings from the field pishtan, another example, raw flax. Pishtan lovesh, is he going to wear a beged that's just made of pishtan? So for that, he needs a woman to help him to weave garments. And of course, we read in Mishlei, Eishes Chayil, about a woman weaving garments. Lo nimtzeis me'ira enov, when he does this and makes bread and he eats of it, he gets me'ira seinayim. But if she's not around, it's not going to be. She really put him up on 2 feet, and of course, as a result of her aid, he's able to dedicate himself to spiritual endeavors, to learning, to tefillah, to ma'asim tovim. Omer Abulasa, furthermore, my dechsiv, Vayomer Adam, Zos Apam, Etzem Me'atzomai, Ubasar Vipsari, Luzos Yikari Isha, Kime Isha Lukacha Zos. Olamit Shaba Adam Al Kol, Behema V'chayev Lo Niskara Daito At Shaba Al Chav. It says, Zos Apam, apparently something was happening in the past, and this was the culmination in something very, very special. And man was having some sort of a chibur, a connection to every being, every creation of God, checking out if he could somehow find a mate, somehow create a community and a connection, closeness and intimacy with any chaya, behema, v'of, and he couldn't do so. And nothing came in until he had a relationship with Isha. And wow, he realized this is it. This is a connection. And it's a deeper connection. It's an existential connection. It's the end to his loneliness. And then he reached the level of Nacha Daita. The Amar Abulazam Aydetziv by Avram Avinu, gracious Perkid Beis, the Nivruchu B'cha Kol Mishpachot Adama, the nations and the peoples, families of the earth will be blessed through you. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Avram Shtei Brachos, Shtei Brechos, Yesh Li Lahavrich B'cha. Brechos are what we call branches of trees. And I'm going to bring these branches and graft them onto your family. Which means I have banos, I have daughters from other families that are not Ru'uya Lios Mishpachas Yisrael. And even though they come from families that are not really worthy of entering and cloning them and bringing them and integrating them into the families. For example, Rusa Moaviyah, she comes from the nation of Moab and not from Israel. And she was brought in to become an essential part of Klal Yisrael through the marriage of Boaz. And what came out of Rus and Boaz is Malchus Beis David of all generations and Moshiach. Nama Ha'amonis. She came from the nation of Bnei Ammon. They weren't worthy of integrating into Klal Yisrael, yet she entered into the people, became an essential part. And according to Chazal, she was married off to Shlomo. She was the mother of Rechavam, from Hakem Chizkiah, V'asa, V'yoshaphat, Tzaddik, Gemurim, even Yeshayahu HaNavi, whose father was Amotz, was a brother to Amatzi Melech Yehuda. I mean, all this came through Naaman. And then the pasuk says, "O mishpachos hadama, shafil mishpachos hadoros, ba'adama, ein misbarchos el b'shvil Yisrael." Even families, tribes, clans that live underground, subterranean ma'oros, in these caves, inside the Adama, even they are blessed through Yisrael. He quotes here the Meiri, Dvarim elu nemer kidei lomar li adam shekidai lo lios mechlal hatzadikim shekol ha'olam misbarach beglolam. The Chiddush is afal pishem anovim umashpilim atzmam kofar adama hem ru'uyim lebracha k'dichsiv hanovim yirshu oretz. And nevertheless, despite this, Bamakom Eino Misparchos Elo B'Shvil Yisrael. The Amar Abulazar further, Hasidim Kol Bali Umnios Sheyamdu Ala Karka. In other words, there are all sorts of tradesmen that work in different fields. We call them Tagre. And they may be experts in their field, each one, but ultimately, they will terminate their umnios as important as they are, and they'll dedicate themselves only to Harisha and Zriya and Ktsira, everything in the character, everything on the ground. And how do I know such a thing? Nemar, it says in Yechezkel, the Yardu me aniosehem kol tovseim malachim kochovli ayam ala oretz yam. All the sailors that row the boats and oversee the ships, and others who are in charge of Ochsei Chevel Havilon, all of these Mashim Binyam. We don't get so much of a revach from that. They will stand on the earth, they'll go back down to the Mother Earth, so to speak, not out in the oceans, and they'll get dedicated, put their hands down, their shoulders to the task of Harisha, Ktsira, etc. This statement of Chazal seems to indicate to what extent is, working the land something very special. Being close to nature and appreciating God. Emunah Zuzroim, Chazal say. The Omar Rabbi Lazar Elucho Unus Chusa Minakarka Shenemar Bo, on those who work the karka, the yardu. It seems like being osek karka is the arida that could bring about poverty. And those who are traveling out on the seas and involved in commerce, in import and export, or trade, they seem to be doing much better financially, greater profit margin. And here it's the yardu miyam liabosh, they go down in a sense. There are a number of questions that we could ask on this, but it says al oretz yam modu, and it seems like yamodu is the opposite of yerida, and eilucha umnus pchusa mimeno. Very interesting. Rabbi Loser Chazi Alahi Ara, he saw a piece of ground, the Shadibe Krovo Lefusia, that across the width of the furrow, he saw Harisha. Amaleh, he said to the owner of the land who did this Harisha, this hoeing, plowing, Itashdia liurchach, if you'll go back and you'll now plow it to the length and not just to the width, in other words, another time around, then you'll get a lot more produce. But hafuche be'iska tav minoch. However, you would do better financially if you would drop the involvement in the farming and go out and get involved in commerce and shipping out on the seas. So this is another indication that what we said before, that karka becomes an umnus pchusa. You got to go down to the land. You've got to work very hard. You got to protect the land. You got to lie down and sometimes rest on the land in order to protect it. People fight over land. And it's not within your control. like manufacturing gold, something out of gold or silver. Rav ol lebene shivle. Rav came from between the shibolim, the sheaves. Chazinu de konaifan. And he saw that they were blowing in the wind. Amalahu, inaifis itnufe. He sort of like spoke to these shibolim, and he said, even if you'll blow back and forth, Yosem imashaten misnofos ka'es, even on a more, radical way. And kaviochel, you'll see yourselves as, succeeding, powerful. It's not going to help you. Afuchi be'iska tov minech. Better to get involved in merchandise, selling and buying schora. Amarova. It's preferable to get involved in schora rather than avodas hadoma, because if somebody he sinks in as an investment, mea zuzi be'iska, 100 zuzim in buying and selling merchandise, he'll have a great profit. Yoma bisra, he'll be able to eat meat on a daily basis and drink chamra and drink wine. He'll become very wealthy. But if he puts all his efforts and invests mea zuzi bi'ara, investing his money into the ground for farming purposes and so forth, then milcha v'chafura, his daily diet will be salt, and chafura is like alfalfa, shachas, that which they cut down for the animals before it even reaches its full maturation. Flo od, not only will be poor and he won't have money to buy his food, ella meganyo le'ara, he's going to have to sleep on the floor, on the karka, in order to protect it from attackers, from animals. Marmiole tigre, and there'll always be fights over the land. Omrav Papa, Zira, Velotazmin. You should plant grains for the purpose of your eating and feeding your family, but don't buy grains from the marketplace for that which you need to eat. Afal gavdachi hadri ninu. Even if right now they're selling grains at a low price and your karka is not in great shape, you won't have any profits. Nicole, shachitim tochal you dafka mimena. Also, nevertheless, better to put all your efforts into planting and harvesting your own grains than buying grains in the market. Hani mevarch, because the bracha is mitzuya in that which is under your control, not in something that you buy with money. And that bracha means it won't be easily consumed, quickly consumed. Zabin velotizel. Sell the utensils, the vessels in your house that you use, and with the money that you receive in payment, go out and invest in schora, buy merchandise and sell it. And this will protect you from getting to the state of poverty. However, hani milu, that which I told you is correct, only with regard to bistarki, which are the vessels in your house, household vessel, aval galima, but with regard to the clothes, even if you're on the verge of poverty, don't sew the shirt off your back in order to make more money, because your garments that you wear are lehiskabed kedei liskabed b'levishasa. And there's always a possibility, a chashash, we suspect that after he gets back to his original state and he has some money to spend, lo misramula, he will not find a glima mechubedes, a garment that's appropriate for him, like the one that he once had. And a person who has a hole in the wall, it's a bad wall in his house, his Rav Papa encourages him, Tom, clog up this hole immediately, below tashpitz. Don't destroy this opening for the purpose of shiputz, lahachnis makom achor, harbechit ulvanu k'dei liaposo. Kevan sha'odif lahotzi hotzot kana. Better if you spend a little bit of money to clog up the hole. Hotzot kana shel stimas achor. Af she'enu nishar kol kach yofe, it won't be so pretty. That's better than beautifying, spending a lot of money on a renovation by having to put many bricks in its place. And if a person spends a lot of money, he's a pazron, and he really wants to beautify the structure, then shapots, in other words, break down this hole, make it square, and bring concrete and put in bricks, below tivnin. But don't break down the entire wall in order to rebuild it in a new place. If a person gets involved in rebuilding his structure, he may get into a dangerous situation and he may get poor. He says, Zewatam Sheherim Shecheno Yisrael Mitzrayim, Orim, excuse me, the cities that the Jews built in Mitzrayim, Orim Miskanos. Osek Binyan Mistaken. Fots Zovin Ara. If you want to buy a piece of real estate, don't delay it, but buy it urgently, immediately, because someone else is going to buy it first. But Masun Nisiv Issa, when it comes to marrying a woman, you should be very, very slow and methodical. Don't jump to any conclusions. Check out the situation, our Maisim Tovim. She shouldn't be a bad wife. Nefis Darga Nesivis, to go down a level and marry a woman. In other words, you should marry a woman who's a little bit on a lower level than you. If you're going to marry a woman who's greater than you, it's possible that she won't accept you. She won't be happy with you. Sak Darga Ubechar Shushbina. Go up a madrega and choose a friend, a beloved, who's more chashuv than you. In friendship, you go up or find someone who's greater than you, so that you learn from his actions. Amar Abelazar bar Avina, ein puranas ba'al liolam el b'shvil Yisrael. In other words, all the evil that befalls the world, what's going on far away in Ukraine or wherever it is, it's all a message that Taisel to do tshuva, to awaken them. Shenemar ichrati goyim nashamu pinosam echravti chutzosam. There's a pasuk in Tzfanya that Peronius comes to the idol worshippers. And it says immediately afterwards, Amarti achtiri osi tikchi musa, that the purpose of all these perennials is so that Yisrael, Kal Yisrael will do tshuva, they'll take Musar. Rav Havi Miftar mi Rabbi Chia, when Rav would take leave of Rabbi Chia, Amalei, Rabbi Chia said to him, Rachmana litzlach, Kadosh Baruch Hu should save you, mimidi de kasha mimosa, from something that's even more difficult than death itself. So Rabbi asked him, Mika midi de kasha mimosa, what could be more terrible than death itself? Nofak dak, he went out and he checked it out, the Ishkach. He found a posuk in Kohelet, Kohelet declared, Motzi ani marmi Moses ish. A woman could be worse than death. Rav Hamiktsayerle de Basic. His wife would be Mitzayer him, cause him agony. Ki Amar Lo, when he said to her, Avidili Tlofche, prepare me a meal of lentils, Avdele Chimte. She would deliberately prepare him kitnios, legumes, not adashim. If he mevakesh chimtzi, avdile tzlovche. She always prepared the opposite of what he asked. Ki gadol chiyabrei, when the son Chia got older, and he saw that his mother was doing the exact opposite of whatever the father was asking for, apachle, he would turn his father's bakosha, his father's request, upside down, the other way around, so that if his father was really looking for this type, he would say the other type. So he would give him the first type, the one that he really wanted. Amalei, Rav says to his son when he saw that his wife, Rabbi Chia's mother, would prepare him what he wanted, and he didn't know, that his son had turned around the bakasha. He aili loch imach. Your mother will buy darka bechel lasus kirton. In other words, she seems to have finally gotten the right path, like she did. Amalei Reb Chia said to his father, "No, that's not onto the kafir. I admit that it was I who switched around your order." Amalei, Rav says to his son about this action, I knew the kami inchi. That's what people have an idiomatic phrase they use. It's common. Nafik minach, what comes from you, meaning your son, Haima milfa. What does that mean? Hainu sha'omer l'cha eitza shelo yadata. You really gave me a good piece of advice. I should have come up with it on my own. But nevertheless, don't do it that way and say that this is what I asked for, this is what my request was. And basically you're saying something that's sheker, you're changing the truth, even though your intention is good, but you're not allowed to do that. Shenemar, limdu lishonom taber sheker, avavid, etc. Nilu, don't change from truth to falsehood. It's a bad habit. It teaches you and trains your tongue to speak falsehood. Rabbi Chia Rabbi Chia also had a wife who was Mitzayim. When he found something that was appropriate for her, he would buy it for her. He would wrap it up in his kerchief, as you do with something that's chashuv. And he brought it to her. Why are you doing such a thing? I mean, she's always causing you agony. You don't have to go out on a limb and work so hard for her. He says, you know what? Despite all the tar that she causes me, Dayenu, it's enough. Shemegadlos panenu, that she raises our children. Umatzilos osonu, on top of Samlikimel Beis Minachet. She protects us from her hure avera. That alone is enough to make her worthy of my gratitude and buying her gifts and to appreciate what she does for me.